So, Steve, before you get started, there was a
Yes.
question in the back for Charlene. She was asking about the butterfat that was used in Rudi's ice cream, which you used at 10%. And
Yeah.
you were discussing earlier, and I agree with this, that in the warmer weather, higher butterfat is really not the route to go. Now, Rudi uses a 14%, and he's successful with that, but he wants to serve a really high-end gourmet type ice cream. So if that's what you want to, if that's what you're striving for, 14% is the way to go.
Yep.
But Steve's point that higher butterfat in warmer weather doesn't really work because the dairy solids kind of get stuck in the back of your throat. And by the time you eat a cup of ice cream, or God forbid a pint, you're not feeling too good in the warm weather. So his point, like this time of year, you can use 14% down here. And I'm a big proponent of high butterfat ice cream. I grew up in that environment. I saw it develop over the years. But I agree that a lower butterfat in this warmer weather is the way to go. So Charlene was saying they're in the islands, Anguilla?
Anguilla.
Anguilla. And she wanted to know what butterfat I would recommend. And I would recommend to her that lower butterfat, 10%, because it's always warm in the islands. Any comments on that, Steve?
Ice cream needs to be in balance. I get a lot of phone calls of people who don't know, none of my customers know how to make ice cream when they start. And that's great. It gives us a very good basis, and I can help teach you from there and bring people in who can help teach you. But ice cream has got to be in balance, and it's three things. It's flavor, fat, and air content. And I get phone calls where someone says, I understand gelato is half air, and I want no air. Well, no air, I just smile and say, okay, great. Because no air can't exist. It can't exist in nature. If you agitate it any, it's going to take on some air. Someone says, I understand Haagen-Dazs is 16% butterfat. I want 30% butterfat. Well, too much is too much. I did an ice cream once for Godiva, and they wanted a 24% butterfat chocolate ice cream. And we made it at the old factory in the Bronx, which was really a pretty seedy-looking place. And everybody ate the ice cream, and within an hour, everybody was ill because the bat and the stray cat died because they came by and ate it, and I think a few of the rats died too because they couldn't. Nobody, including the rats, couldn't assimilate that high of fat, 24%. Just because it's higher than Haagen-Dazs didn't make it better.
Back in the day, Steve, when Steve Harrell was the guru of high butterfat gourmet ice cream, he went from a 14% to an 18% and then tried 20%. And what he found is that the higher the butterfat, it gave you a good rich product, but people didn't want it.
Yeah.
His volumes actually went down. So he went back to a 14% mix. And that's what made Steve's ice cream, which is really the foundation of gourmet ice cream, that's what made him successful.
And it's true because once I have the mix of dairy mix, and once instead of 14, they delivered me 16%. And of course you taste the difference, but it's too heavy, 16%. So it's
you can actually
always get higher. The quality is maybe better, but you have to see what you are using.
And again, I'll get to your questions. You have to look at your market. Rudi said something extremely important that sets him off from probably everybody else in this room. He opens at 3 in the afternoon and then goes into the night. So he literally is serving an elegant dessert. That's what his business is. He could change the name instead of ice cream to Elegant Desserts, and it would bring in the same crowd. He's not getting, it doesn't sound like, I would bet at 8 o'clock at night you have too many 3-year-olds coming in to buy ice cream. They're going to be more during the day, let's grab a cone and go. Yep. And that's who you make a lower fat for and different products. I like to have something for everybody, so I wouldn't have, if I was doing a store, I would have the Cookie Monster, as well as I might have some tiramisu gelato. But you need to have a balance of products instead of just one product. I don't want to be. I'm a proponent of having whatever is going to sell in the market. So if I was opening up in New York City, I would probably have hard ice cream, Italian ices, and some gelato. But the problem with gelato that came along that nobody saw, everybody in Europe eats gelato because that's all they know. And the same with the flavors. I defy you to find someone with a 9-year-old daughter walk into an ice cream parlor and the daughter's tugging on mom's dress saying, "Mommy, could I please have a tiramisu?" It isn't going to happen. They want Oreo cookie, they want mint chip, they want Cookie Monster, they want Superman. So I have those plus the tiramisu and the hazelnuts if I had a store.
That's interesting because, Steve, we've been around a long time. And we've seen a lot of trends come and go. So gelato, this is probably the third run at the American market that I've seen since I've been around. And the Italian market spent millions and millions of dollars on marketing gelato in the United States. The maximum amount of volume they put out in the ice cream industry is they have 1.5% market share. That's it. Gourmet ice cream still rules the market. Gelato's great, but it's a different concept here in the United States. People don't understand it. Where you see gelato mostly is the casinos, the big restaurants, is really in urban America. You won't see it in rural America at all. But with all the money that they spent, with the Italians spent trying to get market share, 1.5%.
But it's also, you should know, you know it also, I think, Rob, if you want to make real gelato lasts only for a couple of days, and then you have to run it again.
Yeah.
So how you can sell gelato if you make gelato and after a week it's still in your dipping cabinet? It's not gelato anymore, it's ice cream.
Great point. If I ran this factory like a gelateria, that would mean I'd bring in about $50,000 worth of steel, and if I didn't use it in 4 days, I'd have to throw it out.
Yeah.
If I'm throwing out $30,000 worth of steel every 4 days, I'm out of business in no time.
If I go somewhere, and I see an ice cream store or a gelato store, I'm always going to buy something because I want to know what the competition is. And there are some fancy stores that sell gelato. I say, yeah, you make it yourself? No, we import it from Italy. So in the hell, how you can import gelato from Italy, sell it over here because you have to throw it away when it's here?
But like Rod said, it was advertising. You can push anything on the American market with enough money. And they were promoting gelato as being a low-fat alternative to ice cream. Well, when you lower the fat, if it's going to freeze in a machine, you have to raise the sugar. So gelatos have a higher sugar content overall from their flavors than they do than the fat. So yes, low fat, high sugar. It's just like yogurt. I mean, we saw yogurt come and go several times, and it just broke our heart because we knew where it was going to end up, and it's going there now. Is they're telling people, oh, this is a no-fat product or a low-fat product. If something is no-fat, then you have to still freeze it. If it's no-fat, it's almost an Italian ice. So you have to freeze sugar. And sugar is fattening. So the product may be low in fat, but it's high in calories. So they were kidding the public with that one.
Yeah, so this is all interesting points, and I know we've strayed away from the buttermilk
Yes.
and the ice cream, but the marketing trends out there continue to evolve, and we've seen the yogurt trend come and go, and most recently, of course, is the tart yogurt serve yourself concept, which has become a national craze, except in New England. What are there, like 3 of them in New England, maybe? But for every store they open today, 2 are closing. So that trend is going backwards. With all the chains that are out there, some of these are about to close up their doors. In the end, gourmet ice cream stabilized, increases slightly every year. But one of the biggest growth areas in this frozen dessert market is Italian ice. Believe it or not, we see 40-45% growth every year, at least since I've joined iRice. 40-45% growth in Italian ice. Amazing.
And I'm personally taking a lot of claim for it.
Steve Steve was, I'm not going to say he was the founder of this because people obviously had their own recipes, but Steve's family and Emery Thompson promoted the Italian ice, what do you call it?
Lemon ice.
Lemon ice concept in New York, specifically in Brooklyn. So they've been a big proponent and backer of ices since Moses.
Since Moses. But the thing is, if you asked anybody about lemon ice, and you said, gee, I'd like to make that, I guarantee you what they would have said to you. If you went into Brooklyn, Bronx, Philadelphia, oh no, you can't make this. This recipe came from my great-great-grandfather in Genoa, Italy. Well, I'm his great-great-grandfather, and I've never been to Genoa, Italy. But that's where they got the formula from. There's parts of Brooklyn I'm afraid to go into now because I started making these tapes and spilled all the beans about how easy it was, and Rod did the same thing, showing people, yes, you can get into the ices business. And I've got to get to two questions, but one thing I just wanted to say about ices is one of my favorite things of promoting is you buy a machine because you found out it's not secret and it's not difficult. In fact, it's just downright simple. And you get a push cart and you start selling Italian ice. Well, here's the way to grow the business. For every one of you who bought a push cart and a machine or a truck and a machine, there are 20 other people within a 5-mile radius who say, boy, I'd like to get into the Italian ice business, but I don't have the money to do it. Their alternative is to go to one of my wholesale customers, Little Jimmy's, Rosati, Via Veneto, who will sell you a tub of ice for $25, and they'll show you that you can make a $135 profit off of that one tub. The problem is it's made up in Pennsylvania, it's made up in New Jersey, and you have to ship it down here to where you are, and shipping refrigerated product is very expensive. They have minimum orders that are close to $1,000, so you have to go out and buy rental space to put it all in. You couldn't have enough Sears chest freezers. And the trucker is worried about the cost of diesel fuel, so he's carrying the Italian ice and green beans and frozen pizzas. So as soon as he leaves the business where he picked up the ices, off goes the reefer, the refrigeration unit. And he's driving down the Jersey Turnpike, the reefer's off, and the ice is starting to melt a little bit, the green beans are warming up, but then he turns it back on, and the green beans refreeze, and who cares, who's going to notice the green beans thawed and froze. Meanwhile, your Italian ice, no matter how you stabilize it, the flavor bleeds to the bottom of the can, so it's all sticky down there. So by the time you buy it, that's about a $78 per tub product from the wholesaler. Now, if I was in the Italian ice business and I had a CB350 and you came up to me and said, gee, I'd love to be in this business, I'm going to say, hey, great, I'll sell you all the tubs you want or as few tubs as you want for $25 a tub. You call me by Tuesday afternoon and tell me what you need. You can pick it up Friday afternoon, cash only. No credit cards, no promises, no net 30, no PayPal. You bring cash. $25 a tub. I'll sell you all the tubs you want. I got them in this big freezer down at 0 or 10 below, so you can put them in your igloo coolers and take them home to your pizza parlor or your push cart. And now I've got someone buying my ice and selling my ice out there besides me. I didn't have to buy a push cart. I don't have to run QuickBooks on the payroll. I don't have to hear, hey, boss, I know you said there's 90 portions in this tub, but I only got 56. Sorry. You know, he's stealing from you. All you're doing is selling it to them. So in a year or less, you've got 20 people selling your product, and all you're doing is having them pick it up. Oh, and by the way, this is Prospect Park in Brooklyn. This is my territory. Don't come into my territory. If I find you in my territory selling ice, my ice, in my territory, I cut you off. So now you also control your market. And you've got 20 people working you for nothing. You had a question right here.
Would you have to have a chest freezer, or could you just keep the ice in longer in the machine and then just put it in a freezer?
You can't keep it in any longer, just like you can't keep a pie in the oven because the pie will be burned if you leave it in the oven. That's why it's called a batch freezer. We take a batch of ice out. If we could call your oven at home a batch oven. We put a batch of steak in, or we put in a batch of tater tots or a pie, and when it's ready, we take the whole batch out. So it has to go somewhere. It has to go into your serving freezer, or it has to go into a chest freezer, or a walk-in room, depending on your business. Always start small. Buy my smaller machine, the CB350. Buy 2 Sears chest freezers for $500 each. The business grows, you get 20 guys or 20 people that you're selling product to. Now you're saying, you know what, we're doing about 700 gallons a week. We better buy a walk-in freezer. But you're doing 700 gallons a week. You've got so much money coming in, you can afford that walk-in freezer without even blinking. So start the business slow, work hard, and build it up. Like Rudi did.
Yeah.
Started with a CB350.
CDB, and then just some freezers, and now I have about 10 of them.
So a little more information on the freezing. Once the product comes out of the batch freezer, for ice creams particularly, you need to put it into a flash freezer. You need to get that temperature down to 20 below zero as quickly as possible to reduce the ice crystallization. If you don't put it in a flash freezer, you just leave it in a regular cabinet like that and then put it out for dipping, those ice crystals will form and you'll get that watery, crystalline note in every bite of your ice cream. So if you're going to make ice cream, you need a flash freezer.
And you've heard Jeff in here say he doesn't use one, and you've heard Rudi say he doesn't use one. Well, the reason is they're making it today and selling it tonight. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But American businesses work on inventory. I like to use the example, there's Seven Seas ice cream parlor in Cape Cod. Now, Paula and I might only, Four Seas, and he's famous, if I can get the name right. And he's famous. He makes wonderful ice cream on Cape Cod. Now, we only make it up there, Paul and I, about every 4 or 5 years. But I can tell you right now, I can taste in my mind what his mint chip ice cream tastes like. It's spectacular. So when I get up there and I want my mint chip after 4 years, he's got to have it in inventory. He can't say, oh, I'm sorry, we ran out an hour ago. That's what they do in Italy with gelaterias. I'm sorry, we're out of tiramisu. Go to the guy down the street. Yeah, fine. No brand loyalty whatsoever. But we build businesses where you have an inventory. So if I have 2 tubs in the dipping cabinet, I need 6 more back there. Because quite frankly, you don't want to be beholden to this machine all day long. You don't want to be standing here all day making ice cream. If you open up a second or third store, you got to make it, finish it, and get it in the freezer, and then people come and pull it out as you need it. So Rudi's not wrong, Jeff is not wrong, but if you have any desire to expand the business beyond the one store, or if your volume quadruples, you're going to need a hardening cabinet or a flash freezer.
But what I do, instead of using the real hardening cabinet, I use the really small chest freezers, and they go below 25.
Yes, but
That's what I use.
But you're running,
it's not going so fast.
and you have how many of them?
I have 6 of them.
Your electric meter's going like this
No,
because they run on 110 volt.
No, I know what you mean, but the thing is, because I started really small, and I use those chest freezers to harden the ice cream. But afterwards, I put them just in a normal freezer on the right scooping temperature.
Right.
And I use those small freezers because I do a lot of events. I use those small freezers on wheels to pull to the events. So in the beginning you make a combination, but now you're right. I'm on the point to buy a bigger blast freezer because I need it.
Because the business grew.
The business
and that's
grows,
why
But that's how I started. But
I used to do ice cream parlors 20 years ago, and I had to rethink everything because banks stopped loaning money. It used to be you'd walk into a bank and say, "I want to open an ice cream parlor. Give me $150,000." Sure, sign here. Can you believe it? That's the way it was. It was so simple. You just got $150,000. Everything you could possibly dream of, and that was your ice cream parlor. Nowadays, they only loan money to people who don't need it. If you're Donald Trump, we'll loan you all the money you want because you don't need it. But the rest of us can't get loans. The question here.
I had 2 because you just brought up something else.
Okay.
What's the volume in a tub? You kept using that word.
A tub, good question. And one of the questions on here was the size of a tub. Let me grab a couple of tubs, and I'll show you.
I have my good question.
Okay, here's some tubs. And it's an interesting story of how we got to where we are. Ice cream, homemade ice cream is sold in 2.5-gallon tubs. Commercial ice cream, if you were to buy it from a big dairy, is sold in 3-gallon tubs. And Italian ice is sold in 3-gallon tubs. So why the difference? All ice cream was homemade ice cream. And the mix came in 10-gallon pails. And so you would measure out 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 to make your product. So it was dependent on the mix, that if you put 2.5 gallons of mix in and you get 5 gallons of ice cream, thus the 2.5-gallon tub goes down through history. When commercial ice cream came out in the 1930s, they had to compete with all you homemade places. Breyers and Seal Test and Borden had to compete with you, and the salesman had to go out and sell commercial ice cream, which was not anywhere near as good as homemade. But they would say, hey, guess what? I'm going to give you a 3-gallon tub for the price of 2.5. An extra half gallon at $1 a scoop. Look how much money you're going to make for free. And so that's why the 3-gallon tub came along. As far as looks, they're both the same diameter, but this one tapers and the others go straight down, so you couldn't tell the difference. Either one is fine to use. Italian ice people primarily use 3-gallon tubs. The freezing time takes longer, almost double what ice cream is, and our source of how much we're going to use is the sink and the sugar. So we can easily adjust up. You can't adjust up an ice cream formula very easily from 2.5 to 3, but you can adjust the sugar water by just raising more water and more sugar and more flavor. So the wholesalers in Italian ice pretty much use 3-gallon. The homemade ice cream use 2.5, and these are reusable. They're good for about a year and a half until they start breaking up. But if you sell to a restaurant and you say, okay, I'm going to bring them in these plastic tubs, and you just stack them up somewhere and I'll come up and pick them up once a week. Restaurants don't have the room in the kitchen. The chef is no way he's saving your tubs. They're going out into the dumpster. So for that kind of wholesale business, you go to a cardboard tub, which, you know, on a yearly basis, this is going to cost you more, but you can deliver this to your Italian ice people wholesale. Yay, lunch. You can deliver this wholesale. You can put this into a restaurant and all they do is crush it. Here's another version of it that's octagonal.
Steve, would you recommend a square container like that in an ice cream freezer?
A square container, if you've got a 16-hole dipping cabinet that holds 16 flavors that are round and they're neatly divided, if you put square in, you can get 20 flavors. So you can get 4 more flavors. But they always look sloppy.
But what about airflow?
Oh yeah, it kills the airflow too.
Kills the airflow.
But it around the
The point
tubs.
to that is these octagonal or round tubs provide airflow around the ice cream, so you have uniform cooling or temperature in the product itself. So you don't get that with the squares.
I own this giant empire of a business. That's right. I couldn't figure out how to put this together. I had to turn it over to our packaging guy to put it together. So they really look cool. This is made by Nijis Containers. It looks really cool, but he said it was a nightmare to put together. But it's octagonal. It's cool.
So you can Google Nijis online, and they can actually sell direct.
Which is good. So
Most distributors who specialize in this business will handle those. You can get them direct. Of course, the volumes are a little higher than what you could buy from distributors.
You had a second question.
This ice cream that we just ate, you put it right in. The consistency we had is, if I go to your store,
No, it's
going to be an ice cream.
An ice cream, yeah, because it's coming out of the
We
machine.
just happened to get it
Yeah,
in a
and
soft ice cream.
you have to blast freeze that one because it's no good if it's coming out of the machine.
Gotcha.
It's too soft. No, it's too soft.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the other thing about blast freezing is Italian ice. You know, you may not have caught that I said I may adjust the sugar on my formula because I hadn't made it in a while, and so I was going to play around with it. I would have tasted it because when you taste Italian ice, what you taste is what you get. When it's liquid, you can taste it and say, "Oh, that's horrible." And if you've done it for a while, you'll know what to do to correct it. But ice cream, the flavor doesn't bloom. It doesn't enhance until it's been frozen. Even if you just put it in a chest freezer, you got to give it at least 8 hours and better overnight before the whole flavor comes up. I've made ice cream for so many people, and they taste it out of the machine, and they go, he doesn't know what he's doing. It needs 3 times as much vanilla. We'll wait till tomorrow and see how strong that vanilla is. Is that true with ices too?
Wait till tomorrow and eat that rum raisin.
Yeah, oh yeah. Do your flavors
with me.
do your flavors get stronger, or do they for ices, or do they hold the same?
They'll get stronger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question on the bucket though. Does it make a difference in clear bucket versus a solid white bucket for stability or?
Well, the clear buckets are going to be very expensive, and they're going to. I'll show you one. They look great in the beginning, but that happens to them.
Who in here has an established
Look.
ice cream?
Look how cloudy they get.
Yeah.
You two guys both have ice cream stores, ice cream parlors. What do you prefer for buckets? You're the veterans.
Same thing, 3 gallon.
Plastic or fiber?
Plastic.
I actually use both. I use some of the, like he said, if I'm selling it to somebody, I'll buy a case of the boxes because I'm never gonna get the buckets back. And,
But in your own store, you prefer the plastic
I
because they
prefer
last
plastic.
longer, and in the end,
right, in the long run.
it's amortized down to
Plus,
pennies.
but it takes you time to wash them out at the end of the day and sanitize them and make sure they're clean. And you got kids involved doing that, you gotta kind of.
You can get a dishwasher machine too if you worry about that. You can get a dishwasher, you put 4 buckets in at a time.
Will they last as long if you put them in a dishwasher as opposed to hand washing?
Yeah. I mean, I've got 500 buckets. And
See, I don't have an ice cream store. I'm just an ingredient guy, so.
And I don't have one either. Anybody else, or should we have lunch? Oh, there's a question in the back. You got anything?
Like, there's customers that have storefronts. Is there a preference? You know, if people have actual dipping cabinets and like use the chest freezers, is there an issue with customers?
Yeah.
That they can't see the ice cream?
Yeah, sometimes there is an issue, yeah.
What way would you go? Oh, you don't. They can't see it.
People don't see my ice cream. I just have a normal counter because I do the combination with the waffle, so you have to order on the counter, and then I scoop my ice cream in the kitchen. And the thing is also because I don't use colors in my ice cream. So if I put my ice cream in the dipping cabinet, it looks from white until brown. I don't have green, purple, yellow, whatever color. I don't have it, so it doesn't look nice. But it tastes better, but it doesn't look nice.
Be right
That's
back.
one of the reasons I don't have a dipping cabinet, because it's going to look all the same. Like the rum raisin, it's tan color. Vanilla is white. You go to chocolate. I have an ice cream called Belgian cookie. It's also a little bit brown. It goes, it's not looking nice.
So again, that comes down to the marketing of your
The marketing
product.
of the product, yeah.
What works for Rudi may not necessarily
Yeah.
work for the next guy. And if people can see your ice cream, people eat with their eyes.
With the eyes, yeah.
So that purple that he doesn't like, kids love that.
Yeah.
Blue. The number 2 selling Italian ice, or whatever non-dairy food, is blue. Blue color. Could be cotton candy.
Yeah.
Could be blue raspberry. So
The thing is also, and it's
Show
true
stealer.
what Rod says, because I do a lot of events. I do every weekend. I do big events, and actually I was against shaved ice. But if you do events and you don't have shaved ice, you go somewhere else. So 6 months ago, I bought a shaved ice machine, and sometimes I do more money in shaved ice than in ice cream, because that's a kid thing. And the more color they want to have color. That's the thing. So I was always against it, but after a while, if you see the kids running around with somebody else's shaved ice, so you say, yeah, I have to do it.
I just wanted you to see my lapdog because the last time she was on TV, she was about 8 weeks old, and I can hold her in 2 hands. Now she's 7 months, and I can still hold her in 2 hands. She can be very wild and running around. This is Samantha Jane Thompson, and we call her Sammy, and she's taken over for Sadie Jane Thompson, who passed away this July. And she's doing a good job, but she's still a big puppy. And so a lot of energy. I weighed her this morning. She was 55 pounds. So anytime you call up, you can speak to a real Thompson, even this one.
Is that $25 a tub just an arbitrary figure you brought out?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna
question
get
over here.
Shaved ice and ice cream, when you do one of these
Events?
events,
Yeah.
you charge the same amount of money?
No, I do. Oh, I have something. it's my aftershave or something.
it's the rum raisin.
Okay, it's the rum raisin, yeah. Okay.
So
Here we go, sweetie.
no, I don't charge the same amount of money. It depends where you go on an event. You have really upscale events. I do a lot of drag races. You can sell your ice cream for $5 a scoop over there. You do a farmer's market, then you have to go down to $4. And I do the shaved ice. I do small, medium, and large, $3, $4, and $5. And that I keep it always the same. But ice cream, yeah, sometimes you have to change your price depending on the event. Sometimes I do an event over here, and the kids, they come, oh, is this for free? I said, no, it's not for free. You go, I do a lot of events out of state in Texas and Georgia. Kids pay with $100 bills over there.
So let me say this before we break. you were talking about costs for a tub of,
I didn't think it could be $25, but he was just.
You get more in California.
and I wanted to say this because I know that you have to leave. So that's what you would typically buy a tub of Italian ice for. So you put it in your cabinet and then dip it and sell it. Okay? The cost of what we just made there, the mango ice, okay, and this is a rough calculation, is about $14. $14 cost. That's your cost.
And that was a tub.
That includes
right?
the mango water ice base and the sorbet base. There's no sugar in there. Those are the only two items. So we drew that out. We got about 2 gallons of finished product, roughly. Okay. 4 ounce servings. That's 66 servings. You sell it roughly $4. That's $264 you made in that tub. It cost you $14 to make it.
Not bad.
That's a rough
You
calculation.
made $10 at the $25 tub, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I'm a proponent of making your own because then you have full control, and you're only limited by your own creativity. But you have full control of what you're doing.
I agree. I like the Italian ice much more than a shaved ice because it's what's our slogan we're doing. It's in the product.
Those
The
are-
flavor's in it, not
Those
over
are
it.
2 entirely different products.
Yeah, but
Shaved ice, snowballs.
The shaved ice I do only on events because
Yeah, I
this
got
is
it.
something kids want
Right.
to have. They want to, and I also, I put my flavors. They can do their own flavors. I don't going to interfere because I have a line of 20, 30 people. I'm not going to put a flavor on. They have to do it themselves.
Right.
So it's a concept to do on an event. I don't do shaved ice in my store. No way.
That's why
I do
wanted to
Italian
get it
ice.
non-dairy,
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
you might have a husband
Yeah.
want one ice, the other one the wife want dairy.
Yeah,
dairy
this is
product.
just only an event type of business. You have to have, if you do an event, it's a nice supplement to your ice cream on an event, and it sells. But I do it only on events, not in the store. I don't do shaved.
We're gonna break for lunch. There's sandwiches over there, sodas, water, coffee. Help yourselves. Alcohol and ice cream. And they hemmed and hawed, and they didn't have an answer, and they didn't know what to do, and they didn't get back to him. So he called them back a couple of weeks later, and same thing, couldn't get an answer. Finally, they came back and they said, "We have a decision. You can put liquor into ice cream because it's an ingredient, just like a bakery makes baba rums, or someone else is making something using alcohol. You can put it in your ice cream. However, if you scoop that alcohol ice cream and put it into a blender and turn it into a milkshake, that's a mixed drink. You can't sell a mixed drink." Is that the strangest thing you've ever heard?
Have you seen that? Is there a document that they actually sent to your customer that said that?
In Florida, I don't know how he got the information, whether it was a letter or a document.
For a year now, I was in Jeff's class last year.
Uh-huh.
We're here. And I went to the alcohol, tobacco, all right, and asked that question, and they didn't know, and they referred me to agriculture, and agriculture referred me to hotel and restaurant, and hotel and restaurant said, "We don't care." And then I used a consultant that worked for the division of hotel and restaurant. She called a contacted person who was a lieutenant in the alcohol enforcement, and I was told I had to buy a full-blown restaurant liquor license as if I was pouring by the glass.
Yeah.
And I thought that we haven't done that, and I don't think we're going to.
It makes no sense because Italian pastry shops have been using anisette and amaretto and rum and everything else in pastries forever, and nobody ever thought about it comes back to, as we say in New York, they don't know their farm animal from third base, and so you've got to just see what happens. It's an interesting segment of the market. The millennials, I like to pick on the millennials, the ones who are 29 to 35 or somewhere in there. They have changed the terminology. We used to just call it putting, rum into the rum raisin. Now it's called liquor infused ice cream. It's much more fancy sounding. Yeah, us older people laugh.
Any questions? I have a list of questions that have been asked of me in the last couple of days, and I just brought them in here. But we'll certainly take yours first. If not, some of the topics are about the mix, are about what size batch freezer, air-cooled or water-cooled, portions, how much is in a portion? Yes, sir.
Sure. Does it matter? I know you said you plan on
You mean stick the cane in?
The brown.
Oh, brown sugar.
You mean, no, you mean raw sugar. Sugar in the raw.
If it's sweet and it's sugar, it's fine. If it
The
dissolves,
sugar-
it's fine.
I think sugar in the raw has a little bit of the cane syrup in it, and that's just sweet. It's great. I use brown sugar also. I just made, yesterday we made bananas Foster, and it's brown sugar. And there's light brown sugar, dark brown sugar. And I also use honey to sweeten things. A lot of my ice creams don't have sugar in it, they have honey in it. Your ice creams, you have a wide range of choices on sweeteners. I stay away from the chemicals. I don't use sweet and low. I don't have any sugar-free ice creams because then you have the chemical sweeteners in there. I don't use Splenda. I don't use agave. What's that other one? Stevia, right. Truvia. I don't use any of those.
They don't work.
Well, I use either white sugar. I prefer Domino's white sugar, or I use brown sugar. And sometimes I use other sweeteners. I use honey, maple syrup, depending upon the ice cream. I make maple walnut with maple syrup. It's great. I don't need to add sugar. No, you don't need sugar.
I misspoke when I said stevia and Splenda don't work. You can use them if you want more sweetness, though they're chemicals. But as far as substituting them for sugar, they don't work because they're missing this terminology from the dairy industry called solids. There's nothing to them. So if you take a lot of Splenda and put it in with coconut water, you're just making coconut ice cubes. You're not making coconut ice cream or coconut Italian ice. You need something with solids, and solids are either a form of sugar or dairy.
And honey's,
honey's wonderful.
Right,
Your vanilla
great.
honey is spectacular.
Yeah, honey vanilla is just great. Now, honey, you want to talk about honey for a minute?
Yeah,
okay,
love
honey. I'm a big flea market guy. I buy a lot of stuff at the flea markets, and at every flea market you'll find the honey guy. He's the guy that sells the honey. And the honey comes in little things up to a gallon. And I was buying the gallons from the honey guy. And I would walk through the flea market every Sunday morning. Hiya, honey, my joke. He didn't like it, but so be it. And he had 7 different kinds of honey. He had wildflower honey. There's a million different kinds of honey. So I picked out the honey that I thought I would like for a particular flavor. It happened to be wildflower. And I bought the gallon, and it was $85 for the gallon. Which is not too bad, I thought. And then every week I was buying maybe 2 gallons of honey from the guy at the flea market. Hiya, honey, I'll take 2 gallons. And he would, put a sample on my finger and everything. And things were going great. I had a source of honey. And he, as they all do, he claimed local honey. They all claim local honey, which Jerry advised me yesterday is not true. But so be it.
No. It's organic.
Organic honey, right. There's no such thing as organic honey. The bees don't go on a special diet to make this organic honey.
Good point.
Anyway, so I was buying the honey at $85 a gallon and thinking, well, this is great. My ice cream was great, and I was liking it. Then I always look for different things. I looked on webrestaurant.com, which you ought to write that down, webrestaurant.com, and I found honey for $35 for a gallon. So I figured it can't be any good. But I ordered it, and I ordered wildflower, and bingo, new source of honey. And I loved it. It was great. And it came packaged in nice plastic bottles with a thing. Perfect. Then I was on eBay, and I found a guy who does bees. What do they call him? A beekeeper. A beekeeper. And he sells his honey. He's in Georgia, and he puts them in bladders. Like the bladder there that we use, he puts his honey in bladders. And I had a choice, and wildflower was one of the choices. I bought it, $22 for a bladder, which was how many quarts? 3 quarts? 8 pounds. It was 8 pounds. Nice amount of honey. And it was really good. Jerry wouldn't have any, but it was really good. He's a bee honey purist. He's a beekeeper. Yeah, he's a beekeeper. So he wouldn't eat my honey, but that's all right. So what I'm saying is that your sources for all these supplies, whether ice cream mix, sugar, honey, flavors, whatever you want to do, even Oreo cookies, there's always going to be different sources for them. And you can't rely on one place to get everything. That's all. Long conversation for a very silly short answer. Yes, Troy?
Jeff, you have a lot of flavors in your store. For somebody just starting out, do you advise to start with that many?
Well, good question. How many flavors to start with when you're opening up? I started with 6. I had the 6-quart machine, and I had 6 flavors. And those 6 flavors, by the way, I still use every day today. They're great flavors. It depends how hard you want to work, right? If you want to work 12 hours a day making ice cream, you can have 30 flavors when you open up. But just remember, you're not going to sell them at the rate that you want them to disappear from your freezer. You don't want ice cream to sit too long, even though my recommendation for the 1-gallon containers has basis in soundness. You know, it makes sense to have 1-gallon containers. But still, you don't want it to sit for 6 months. And the more flavors, the less you're going to move of each flavor. You can build a reputation on 6 flavors. I guarantee it. I did. And milkshakes.
And then you can bring in a special flavor whenever you want. If there's holidays, maybe you want to do cotton candy cane. I'm not a fan anymore of what we used to call the visual display cabinets. That's what Baskin-Robbins uses, where you can see all the ice cream. I'd rather have excellent signs up on the board and tell people, you know, if someone says, well, I can't decide. Well, why don't you try my vanilla honey today? You can make the decisions for them.
What perchance changed your mind on that?
Because people, not because you're not using them. It's because somewhere, somehow, we made a terrible mistake in the ice cream business, and we started giving out a free tasting. Someone, you know, we'd say, hey, why don't you try my maple walnut? Well, now you get people in here who have figured out a con that they can go into an ice cream parlor and spend a half hour tasting every single ice cream in the dipping cabinet, and then by the time they're finished, they're full and they walk out. But even if they don't do that, if there's upstart, honest people and they just can't make a decision, that indecision is holding up a line of 25 people.
That's why we don't do it.
And one thing about Americans, unlike the British will get on a line because the line's there. And that's it. We don't wait on lines. I mean, if I've got to wait more than 45 seconds for something, I'm impatient. And it's not just me, it's Americans in general. So if you keep us waiting, if your culture is different in your country and people don't mind waiting for an hour, that's fine. But here in the United States, more than a couple minutes is a disaster.
And when one person online, we always have a line, when one person has a taste, the guy behind says, well, I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
And I'll try that also. I'll try the cherry fudge. And then the next person, and before you know it, it's taking, where it normally takes us 38 seconds to wait on a customer, now it's taking 2 minutes to wait on a customer. So it just builds.
And those of you who think you want to do the, watching this video, if you think you want to do this cryogenic ice cream, using the nitrogen, watch a video. And when you start the video watching it, set your stopwatch. And you'll see that it takes 7 minutes to serve one customer. Well, 7 times 30 is what, 210 minutes. If you've got a line of 30 people out the door, which is not unusual on a weekend, and it's going to take 210 minutes to get served, they're never coming back. It's a disaster idea. It's not even a good ice cream. For every 7 ounces they use, they get 5 ounces of ice cream. They're losing money.
We have a nitrogen ice cream devotee here.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. So, from a business perspective, you're right.
Okay, that's enough of that.
There is that long serve time.
So we'll get you a can of liquid nitrogen, and you can just go spray some cream at home and be happy. But as far as running a business, it's a disaster.
The same thing with the marble slab ice cream.
The nitrogen equipment is that the equipment cost is high. I have to buy a phase separator which separates the liquid from the gas, and it costs as much as that little machine.
And guess what? Wait until your insurance company finds out that you've got tanks of nitrogen in your store. Yeah. Wait till the fire department finds out that you've got tanks of nitrogen in your store. They're going to come down on those stores like a ton of bricks.
Well, the next problem is that you can't get, I talked to, I won't give the company name because it's not fair to them, but I talked to one vendor and he wouldn't even sell it to me. He says, in order for me to sell this to you, I need to have a signature, or an agreement from the president of the company to make sure that you're following the safety standards. Because if you drop this on your boot, you have instantaneous process.
You know, it all comes down to the fads in ice cream. In the 70s when I grew up, TCBY was on top of the world, and they were on every corner, everywhere you could go, frozen yogurt. Then they went down. Now they have reached their peak. They're going down again. Same thing with the people who mix the flavors on the cold marble slab. They're dropping like flies too.
Yeah.
The reason is this. You're all older than 12 years old. When you were growing up, ice cream was it. You didn't eat anything else, and everybody on the planet loves ice cream. Ice cream is a constant. The soft serve goes in and out. Gelato goes in and out. The yogurt goes in and out. Everything goes in and out, but ice cream. Ice cream is a constant. Every living, breathing human being on the planet likes ice cream, which is a great market to have, but it's consistent. You make great ice cream, your world will change. You'll live a life that you never dreamed of. I know it. I guarantee it. No fads. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to hear more about the $15,000.
I figured you might. I pegged you for somebody about the $15,000. The
What's
question
the
is,
$15,000?
I profess to teach in my class how you can get into this business for $15,000. That's not a come on. It's not a scam, and I'm not lying. I did it. I got into the business on $13,000. The basic machine from Steve here is $10,000. And really, that's what you need. There's only one piece of equipment. I won't get into this too much. There's one piece of equipment that you absolutely need, and it's a batch freezer. And the batch freezer, if you get the smaller one, is $10,000. He even makes a smaller one now, which is how much? $5,000?
59.
5,900, a smaller batch freezer. And you know what? They all make great ice cream. So if that's your cost for the main piece of equipment, the other stuff is incidental. A couple of stainless steel tables, spatulas, you're done. Even your outlay of rent. We had a big discussion in the class this time on rent. And somebody said, well, I can rent a place for $36,000. No. When you're starting out, Steve is absolutely correct. Don't incur debt. You don't want to incur debt. I would rather open a smaller shop with less flavors, whatever, than go into debt. So 15 grand, certainly doable. I did it on 13. I had 2 left over. So I took a vacation before I opened up. It was great. It's doable. No problem at all, doable. Of course, I have people coming through the class, and this is a true story, a husband and wife, and they came to me, and I always ask your budget. They said, we have $2 million, and we're kind of nervous about it. Of course, they were opening up on Catalina Island on the apex of the boardwalk with an upstairs and a downstairs, rent $24,000 a month. They were nervous about $2 million. But, we did it, they did it, and they're fine. They're still there, and everything's great. So everything's relative. Where are you going to open, how many square feet, what product you're going to sell, the hours you want to work, all comes into the mix. One of the people, just last thing, one of the people in the class this week said, I want to spend time with my friends. How much time do you spend making ice cream? Yeah. And I said, forget about that. Forget about spending time with your friends. You're now entering into a different phase of your life, a phase that's going to give you total independence and total success in mind and in wallet. You're going to be free of everything. It's going to change your life. But time with your friends, don't count on it, because you're going to be at the store. You're going to love being at the store. I love being at the store. But you're going to spend that time there, a lot of time. Yes, sir.
I have a question for you. On 12 and 24 batch freezers, can you make a small batch of, say you want to make...
Absolutely. The question is, can you make a small batch in a larger machine? I have the 24, and I always make smaller batches. I don't always, but if I need to, I can always make a smaller batch.
You can make a half batch on all the larger machines. On the CB350, that one we want you to make a full batch, 6 quarts. And I think if you're not making 5 or 6 quarts, it's not even worth making. Remember my avocado ice cream? Oh. That was not worth making.
How about our friend up there?
The Sharknado, that wasn't worth making either. I have a whole list of these things.
Today, by the way, I was on the 12-quart machine, and I was using 5 quarts of mix. So that worked for me also.
Well, what I'm saying is, basically, let's say you got a crazy idea, you want to try something, but you don't want to make a lot of it. You just want to try it to see if you like it.
Good point. The question is, if you want to make a crazy batch, but you're not sure you're going to like it. I also teach how to make a recipe on the counter, on your table, in this much, and you'll know if you're going to like it. And then you can go ahead and make your batch. If your batch doesn't sell, then you got another story. Then you've picked the wrong flavor. I've had lots of flops. I thought Slambuca was a winner. I'm serious. I love Sambuca. I thought Slambuca, they're going to go nuts. It's the next best thing. And quickly I dumped it out. But you won't have to waste it if you come up with goobers. You know what goobers are? If you come up with goobers ice cream on the countertop and you do your proper testing, just make it. Just make a batch. It'll be fine.
Do you test new flavors with your friends, or do you put it out there in the store and see if it sells?
Good point. I consider myself the supreme leader. I know what's good, and you know what's good too. You're all going to have to know what's good. Or you could just take, like my book, and make those 20 flavors. There's 20 some odd flavors in there. You could run a store on that. But I think I know what's good, and you're going to think you know what's good. If you're Asian, if you're Hispanic, if you're from the Middle Eastern, whatever, you're going to have those flavors that you think are going to fly. Some will, some won't. What was your question?
Yeah, that was
okay.
good.
Okay.
Do you let your friends decide if it's good, or do you just put it in the store and
No,
see
I
what
put
happens?
it in the store and I let the customers tell me.
Okay.
And they'll let you know. They'll let you know by it not selling. Everyone will try something once, but then, the girls will tell me, raspberry chocolate, it's not selling. So you don't make it again, or you give it away. I give away a lot of ice cream every night. I get small cups with small taster spoons. I put it on a table of 6. I say, try this. I do it all night, every night. I give away a lot of ice cream. And they'll let me know. And I tell them, it's free, so give me an honest feedback. And they will. If it's free, they will. If they have to pay for it, they won't.
That's what I do, because I don't have a store, but I'm making ice cream for my friends and for family. And it's kind of humorous, but it really makes the point that you can't rely on your friends, because at first I start making vanilla and I deliver to them, and it's, oh, Steve, we love you. Steve, it's great. Steve, it's fantastic. It's also free. And then next month, it's, oh, Steve brought vanilla. Steve, if you could add a little more vanilla or maybe a little honey, it might be a little bit better. And then the third month is, oh, Steve, can't you make anything else but vanilla? So they're not a good judge. A good judge is always, how does it sell in the store? Right. I had a lady call up, and I've told this story before on tape, from New Jersey, and she said, I've got a tub of bubblegum licorice that has been in my, bubblegum licorice ice cream, it's been in my freezer now for, 10 months. Is it any good? She had it down to 40 below zero. I said, yes, ma'am, technically in the dairy industry, it's as good as the day you made it because it's so frozen solid. But the fact that it's sitting in your freezer for 10 months, your customers are telling you, get rid of it. We don't like bubblegum licorice ice cream. It's a lousy flavor. So judge everything by sales. Jeff's doing it even faster by giving it away free to his customers. And he's got a very interesting clientele, and they're going to give him immediate response. But don't rely on your friends. I mean, I've had people call up and they tell me I just made this wonderful batch of vanilla using just straight 41% heavy cream, and everybody raved about it. Well, I know they all went home and had a bad case of Montezuma's revenge, and they didn't, tell them. So your friends are not reliable. You put it out in the market and see what goes. And if it doesn't go, be fast enough to pull it out. My favorite ice cream that I make for myself is banana coffee. It's delicious to me. I probably have 5 gallons of banana coffee in there from 4 months ago because everybody else hates the flavor. But I'm an optimist. I say, hey, I've got 4.5 gallons left just for me. But nobody else will touch it. It's
and
so
just quickly,
bad.
One of the questions before we started this today was, how do you come up with flavors? My philosophy is totally different. I don't go online and order from the flavoring companies, this flavor, that flavor, this flavor. I take a wagon and go through markets, supermarkets, ethnic markets, which includes Asian, Greek, Italian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern markets, any place I can find, and I go up and down the aisles looking for interesting things. If I can't read the labels, I'll ask them where the desserts are, and I'll look for cans. Recently, I found in a Hispanic market something called horchata. I didn't know what horchata was, but I bought it, and I took it home, and as soon as I opened it, I knew what it was. It's rice pudding, and it comes in a jug. And what they do is they take a few teaspoons in water, mix it up, and drink it. Well, if you make ice cream out of it and call it rice pudding and maybe add some golden raisins, you got a hit. And I have a hit with what I know is horchata, but I call it rice pudding ice cream. So, and cheesecake, the Jell-O no-bake cheesecake makes amazing ice cream. And then you can you can flavor it with anything. You get a blueberry cheesecake, cherry cheesecake. We make turtle cheesecake. We add fudge and caramel to it. It's incredible. So where do you come up with flavors? Go to the supermarket. Look at the Jell-O aisle. They got 150 flavors of Jell-O. Think about those. Just let it go.
Before we, oh yes.
I wanted to know the time duration for a 6-quart machine. Like, if you start off that small and you're in the shop and you have to make them all day, do you have to give it time to breathe?
The question is, do you have to let the six quart rest? If it was an Italian machine, you'd have to let it rest overnight. But really, they can't handle it. The 6-quart. All my machines are built the same way. The dashers are the same. The designs, the freezing cylinders. I build machines that last 45 years or longer. Nobody else does that. The average life of every other batch freezer on Earth is 8 years, 8 to 11 at the most. That's all you're going to get out of a Cappigiani. Taylor is out of the batch freezer business. They don't make them anymore. Electrofreeze is owned by Cappigiani, same machine. Stolting, they're only going to last 8 years.
And how would you like to be working in your store wondering every day about the heartbeat? You know, am I going to have a problem with this machine? I beat the crap out of it. I'm sorry. I beat the hell out of his machines. I run them like crazy. I don't stop. Some days I want to have the next day off to play golf. I'll run that machine 12 hours straight without stop. And you can't hurt them.
But the running the machine and how long can you run it? Because you can run it 24 hours a day. And to that end, I'm a big proponent of getting someone, I know Jeff doesn't do it, but get someone else in to help you. If you're in, say, the Italian ice business, and you need a lot of ices. My father-in-law was a NYPD, and every New York police officer, every New York police fireman had a second job. And who better to hand a file card to and say, you know, if you have time off between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., come in and make my ices following my recipe. Then you can work the machine 24 hours. Because I tell people, you, me, and Donald Trump have one thing in common in business. We only have a 24-hour day. And so it comes down to how are you going to use that 24 hours? When you're a new young entrepreneur, and Jeff's going to speak on this because he'll modify what I say, that's fancy for disagree. If you only have 24 hours and you're running the machine 18 hours a day, I think that's what you have to do as a young entrepreneur. It gets you into business at a price, Jeff's $15,000 price, that you can get into business, you're making money. But one of the days you're going to wake up and your spouse is going to say, could you please come home and sleep once in a while? Or the kids are wondering what daddy looks like. Or you're just plain exhausted. And if you're in business and you're running 18 hours a day, it means two things. One, you're making a lot of money because that product's going somewhere. But two, as you'll see on watching Shark Tank all the time, it's a bad use of your time. If you could cut that 18 hours down to 4 hours, maybe every other day, that would free you up to go out and find new places to sell your ices, new places, this new restaurant opened. I'm going to go see if I can sell them ice cream. This gelateria opened and they're buying it from a place in Atlanta, and I'm in Florida. I'm going to go sell them my gelato. It gives you more time to do things. When I first became, I started off in assembly when I was 16 years old, bending copper tubing. Graduated up to be a salesman, outside salesman for many years. And then about 25 years ago, I became president of the company. And when I became president of the company, I used to leave early in the morning so I could get in there and unlock the 15 locks to our building in the South Bronx. I emptied the trash cans, and it made me feel like I was important because I was critical to the business. Until I got tapped on the shoulder by a friend of mine and said, you know what, with computers nowadays, if you stayed home until 7:30 in the morning, you could work from 6 a.m. to 7:30 talking to all the countries in the world that are now in the afternoon time zones, and you could be more productive. If you're doing any job for 18 hours a day, you're not productive. But I say that when you first start the business, you have to put in the hours. And then as the machinery and the business grows and makes money, like Jeff's did, then you can afford to buy bigger machines.
And just remember, I didn't come up with this, but it's so true. Find a job you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, that's me.
I love being at the store. I absolutely love it. I would rather be there than home. It's just the most fun. And you know, you become somewhat of a celebrity. People come in, they're buying your product from your machine, and they're paying you money for that, right? And you look at them and they're enjoying themselves. It really, it's great. It's the greatest.
Yes.
How long does it take to clean the machine out?
You'll see us, but if there's two answers. One is you plan your production. See, we're just making a batch here and a batch there, and they're all very different. We would plan our production normally. So if I was doing ice creams today, I would start with vanilla, and then I might go to butterscotch swirl, because that's vanilla in the machine, and Jeff added the swirl as it's coming out. So you could do butterscotch swirl, chocolate swirl, strawberry swirl, still vanilla in the machine. Then I might go, if I'm doing fruit flavors, I might go to strawberry. Now I've put strawberries in the machine. I've contaminated it with strawberries. And then from strawberries, I might go to Bordeaux cherry. They're both fruits, and now one is a little bit darker than the other. It's called overlap. And there's not but a pint or so left in the machine, so there isn't much overlap. But I don't want chocolate overlapping the vanilla. So I go to strawberry, maybe Bordeaux cherry, black raspberry, then pistachio nut salad if I was making that, and then I would rinse the machine. And so after pistachio nut salad, I'd probably put in one hot rinse to loosen everything up, and you can't put hot water in.
Did you call that pistachio nut salad?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I misheard you.
No, we might try it sometime.
Okay.
It's like the kitchen sink.
Okay.
A hot rinse, you can't do that with any other machine in the world. They'll void your warranty. Put a hot rinse in, that loosens everything up, drain it out, and then I go on to my next grouping of flavors. At the end of the day, I'm going to put in a hot rinse followed by another hot rinse, and I'm done. I'm going to open the door up, I'm going to take the dasher out and just finish washing it in the sink. If I have a dishwasher, I'll put it in the dishwasher, but ultimately I just leave the parts on the door. So the answer to the question is maybe 10 minutes at the most at the end of the day. Now, if you've got a soft ice cream machine, God help you. Every third day, it used to be every day, but now they're bending the rules. Every third day, it's 1 hour to clean out that soft ice cream machine. People absolutely hate them. People who have bought soft ice cream machines just say, I wish I'd never gotten into this. Besides, all they do is vanilla and chocolate. We can do any flavor on earth.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? I get this all the time, and I just don't know. What's the difference between soft serve mix and ice cream mix?
Soft serve mix is specifically designed by the dairy. It's 10% or less. So like Dairy Queen is dropped all the way down to 4%.
Butterfat.
Butterfat. The average is 6%. 10% is a rarity nowadays. Tom Carvel, if anyone knew Carvel, was 10%.
Well,
good
let's
stuff.
say you use 10%. What would be the difference between the 10% soft serve mix and this 10%?
It's got chemicals in it to keep it from melting as fast.
Okay.
So it's loaded with chemicals.
Okay.
It's all so that it stays on the cone and has a
Gotcha.
dry look and doesn't. It could be the same temperature as our ice cream.
Right, but ours melts right away.
And there's doesn't. And you know, I don't want an ice cream that's just hanging around in 100 degrees for a half hour. Yes.
Okay.
You can, to clean the machine, you can pour hot water in, it won't be too much of a shock to the...
No, it won't. The question was, can you put hot water in the machine? And I have to caveat that because I've been in restaurants in New York City where you put your hand in the water and you've got a third-degree burn. If you can put your hand into it without pulling back in pain, it's fine for my machine. Because if you've ever tried to clean up an egg with cold water, you know you're just sloshing it all over the floor. Hot water does the job. The difference is my barrel is thick plate stainless steel, and theirs are spaghetti pots. They take a thin sheet of stainless steel and they stamp it. And in order to stamp stainless steel, it's got to be ultra thin. So anytime you put hot water in it, it sounds like you know refrigeration, the gas expands very quickly. It just like that. And all of a sudden you get bubbles in your stainless steel and your machine is ruined. And it says right in their instruction manual at Capojani, we'll void your warranty if you put any nuts or cookies in here. We'll void your warranty if you put hot water in here. We say, let the party begin. Put it all in.
And let me say this, the other machines, and again, I don't work for Steve, the other machines have plastic doors. Plastic door. I mean, what kind of sense does that make?
And I can't tell you how many people, everything I do is for a reason. You see there's 4 knobs holding the door on. Oh, what a pain in the neck, the knobs get away. Why don't you be like the Italian machines and have a cam action over and down? Well, because they're selling them after 5 years buying a new door for $1,500 or $2,000. That cam action wears out. We have not worn out a door in 111 years. It isn't going to happen. 4 knobs. Would you really, unless you're doing a race car, would you, and I don't even think they do it, would you really drive a car down a highway at 80 miles an hour with 1 lug nut holding it? No thanks. Give me the 4. In the car, it's 5. There's one other thing I just want to bring out on machines, when we can answer more questions, and we're going to go to lunch too, is one of the major soft ice cream companies in the United States, the biggest in the world, used to make batch freezers, but they had trouble competing with me, and they have gone out of the batch freezer business. The only problem is they are completely out. They're finished, done, gone. The problem is I found out they've got about 300 or 500 of their 20-cord version of my machine sitting in warehouses, and they plan to sell them off. Now, I got to ask you a question. This happens with the Italian machines too, because they ship them over in July of last year to sell in June of this year, because it's cheaper to bring them over by the boatload. Would you buy a brand new car that is technically brand new, it's never been used, but it's 2 years old? I mean, I wouldn't. Hey, I can sell you a brand new 2014 Lexus. Never been driven. Terrific, but it's a 2014. It's not a 2016. That's basically what they're doing.
And the company wouldn't be making cars anymore.
No, they're not making it anymore, so there's not going to be any more parts. I did a little research on this. I always was under the impression that a manufacturer had to keep parts for their models for 7 years. It's a myth. They can stop tomorrow, and they have. They won't be making parts. So you're buying a machine that's already 2 years old, a year old, 6 months old, and you can't get parts for it in the future. Your Emery Thompson isn't built yet. I'll show you out back when we go for a walk at the end of this afternoon. You place an order today. We're not standing around waiting to build your machine. We're at full capacity all the time. You're getting a place in our handmade assembly line. And that takes, on average, 4 weeks, except for the countertops. I build a separate assembly line for them. But your machine isn't built yet. So when you order a machine, it's so fresh, it's not even put together yet. This business, Microsoft, is famous for this. How many of us own a Microsoft-based computer? That would be all of us. And every 3 years, Microsoft says, all right, you'd figured the beekeeper would have an Apple. Of course you have an Apple.
The beekeeper.
How often do you hear Microsoft says, oh, we no longer support this version? You're going to buy an ice cream machine where they no longer support this version? True story. Guy called up last week. He had a machine from 1950. That's 66.
An Emery.
An Emery Thompson, chain-driven, 66 years old. He said, I need a part. And he said, do you have the part? I said, your question should not be, do we have the part? It's, do you want that part delivered next day or second day? We had it, and we sent it to him. Darn machine's still running. Breaks my heart. I wish it wasn't running. I want to sell him a new machine. But that's what we do. We built our reputation, our family reputation, by building machines that are, bulletproof. We used to call them, because of the neighborhood we were in the Bronx, we used to call built bulletproof in the Bronx. I come down here, I build this building, and they find an unexploded ordnance, as they're digging. And I begged them to because this used to be a military base, I begged them to give me the bomb. And they said, no, it's going off to be detonated. I said, but I could put that in front of the building, and now I could be built bomb-proof in Brooksville. But they didn't let me. If there's no more questions right now, we have lunch ready to go. So help yourselves.
Great. Thanks,
we'll get some soda out here and some ice, and then we'll commence making more product.